king of sports books comes the king of sports podcasts. Unleashed. Presented by BetMGM. Here's your hosts, Jerry Ferrara and Olivia Harlan Dekker.
Welcome to Unleashed. Coming off another great week of sports. I can't wait to dive into all of this. You know, we got to give a congratulations to the Houston Astros on winning the World Series. I saw Mattress Mac had that big bet. Jerry, did you see that?
I did. I was watching him. They had a camera on him for some of it. And yeah, I would not want to watch a game with that dude. It's very stressful.
Oh, my God. He bets the house. And for him, it's not just any house. Yeah, he's one of the most prolific bettors in the country, right?
Yep, many houses he had on the line. Many houses.
Yeah. Yeah, and also I was laughing. I thought of you because the LAFC won the MLS Cup. And do you remember just a couple weeks ago we were kind of ranking LA sports teams and we totally left them out. What was wrong with us? Why did you do that?
That's on me, Olivia. I got to admit,
Yeah.
I love soccer. I love football, soccer, whatever you want to call it. As we lose time being parents, the things that slip through the cracks, my love of soccer and football slipped through the cracks.
Yeah.
So that's on me. That's on me.
Yeah, I like how you're trying to be so politically correct. Soccer, football.
Well, I don't want to piss someone off.
I think we already have. Yeah, we even brought up the LA Galaxy, so shame on us. And then, oh my gosh, we cannot go any further into this episode without paying homage to the amazing college football weekend that was last weekend, Jerry. Holy cow, number 1 Tennessee got crushed at UGA, the new number 1. They never should have left. And Bama really might be out of the playoff hunt as they lose their second straight, or not straight, but in conference. 2 SEC games they've dropped to LSU and Brian Kelly. And then, of course, they lost to Tennessee a couple weeks ago. I mean, it's so bizarre. I mentioned last week I'm working the SEC championship game in less than a month. And it's so bizarre that Bama is not going to be there.
Yeah, that's just, there's things that you just always kind of count on. But I do think it's good. I think it's good that we get some, I don't want to say new blood, but just different blood in there. Because look, respect to Bama, obviously incredible. But yeah, I could do without for 1 year. That's fine.
Sure.
We'll all survive. We'll be okay.
I like that. And just for a kind of updated look now. So the Tide, according to, the playoff predictor, which is all, because really the playoff committee, it's humans, making the decision to pick the top 4. So it's not as cut and dry as maybe some people would like it to be. Obviously, we've talked on this podcast about expanding the college football playoff and how that's going to be a whole new scenario. I can't wait to see that in a couple years. But so now Alabama has a 16% chance to make that top 4. And I mean, you look at Michigan, UGA, TCU, Ohio State, they're all 9-0. And TCU also has a 16% chance to make the top 4. Think about that. Alabama's lost 2 games. TCU hasn't lost any. They both have the same amount of opportunity to make this top 4 now.
Yeah, I think this is what everyone had in mind when they first expanded into a playoff system. And I think expanding it further will be great because you really get some excitement as we enter into this holiday season. And we can talk about this when we get into the NFL too. Christmas Eve, it all falls on the weekend pretty much. So we're going to be watching lots of sports over this holiday season, and college football is going to be a pretty big component of that.
Oh yeah. No, it's going to be very exciting. Yeah, so now it's looking like LSU and Georgia in the SEC championship. That's going to be awesome. Okay, NFL weekend. Another doozy to say the least. And I know our Peter Andrew lost a little bit. I'm going to assume that you did too.
Little.
I know. I was being nice. I was being nice. But the Jets kind of ruined a lot of people's weekend.
Yeah, and there's at least one of these every week. I thought it might be the Texans, as we spoke about last week. There's at least one big money line, underdog every single week. So if you could start sniffing that out, you're doing a little. I stayed away from the Bills-Jets game. I just didn't. Yeah. I did okay this weekend. I snuck out. I just kept my head above water. It wasn't terrible. Peter Andrew, on the other hand, who's going to be joining us, he might need to go back need to go get renew his vows with his wife, because when he came out of the wedding, he was hot, and that wedding juice is wearing off.
Oh my gosh, I know. I can't believe the Jets are 6-3. They're actually the first team in the NFL to hit the over on their win total. So yeah, odds makers had that at 5.5. I want to offer a big congratulations to anyone who has cashed in on that. Please tweet us if that was you, because I'd like to know what else you have cooking for the rest of the season, what other futures you have, because something tells me you are on to something.
You're going to get a lot of tweets from a lot of undisciplined Jet fans who put money on the Jets over. Because, Jet fans, they always think their team, like, this is the year we're going to break through. So your tweet is going to get flooded with unreasonable Jet fans.
The Jets are fun to watch. I like cheering for Robert Saleh. I covered him when he was a defensive coordinator in San Francisco. Great guy. No one has a bad thing to say about Robert Saleh. He's such a good one,
No, and I think we kind of, it's very memeable now. Everyone talking about the receipts and all that. It was a great quote. We all ran with it at first as like yeah, keep those receipts. I think that really was a defining moment for the team in their relationship with their coach, where their coach went out in public, didn't just say like, we're getting better every week. Like, he actually said something there, and the team really responded. And speaking of the Jets, we got to talk later about the AFC and NFC playoffs, for that matter, because I'm looking at these AFC, like, what, 7 teams got to make it. The AFC is a big jigsaw puzzle of who's going to get in and who's not. And it is going to be amazing coming down the stretch.
I mean, I'm looking right now at the standings. I see 5 teams with 6 wins already. I mean, the top is thick. It is going to be, it's almost going to like cannibalize itself. It's sad that some really good teams are going to miss the playoffs.
Yeah, and I think I found one that is going to miss, and so we should maybe just go through some of these odds. And,
okay, let's do it.
Do you think they get in? Do you think they not? Because it's tough. The NFC is a little more clear, I think. Little, not much, slightly clearer. Your Packers stinking. Your Packers stinking has certainly helped.
Well, it helped too. It's just made everything more interesting. I mean, because now, and speaking of the NFC North, because I know we focus a lot on the teams that we love and the divisions that those teams are in, but the Bears and Miami, and I'm not talking about Bears making the playoffs or anything, but the Bears looked and that was a shootout, and Justin Fields was a monster, and something is starting to come together that we should see the fruit of, I think, next season. I know I'm going off track here a little bit, but geez.
No. I'm with you. And I listen to a lot. I love Mike Lombardi. I think we're going to get him on this podcast in the next couple of weeks. So if you really want the deep dive stuff, and, he made some great points about Justin Fields and how they catered the offense to him, which was kind of like opposite of what the Titans did with Malik Willis. They didn't really run anything for him. The passing is still, it's better, but it's still wild. But either way, that run that he had, like, just build around that guy. And you really look back at that draft class. We always talk, who's the best? Justin Fields at one point would probably say he was 4th or 5th on that list of quarterbacks coming out. Now I think he vaulted to number 1. The Bears got something going, and I like the Claypool edition. And they really got something going there. They got a good coach, I think. I think they have a good coach.
And I would love to know all the nuances, because that was one of the big storylines the whole trade deadline week. Where was Claypool going to go? And I know Green Bay was, I guess, close. I don't know. That whole story was weird, but I think Green Bay was going to be a destination.
Yeah, I'm looking to, like, the Bears are favored at home against the Lions, who somehow, beat your pack. I mean, I'm sorry, Olivia. I don't know
what to say at this point.
It's over.
It's over. It's over.
But maybe not this season. Maybe like the team, like, it might be time to hit the, press in case of emergency button. And I think the Rodgers trade is like imminent. I don't know. What else do you do if you're there? What else do you do? You're gonna have a great draft pick. You draft another quarterback.
Or do you pack it in, focus this offseason on getting him some weapons? I think your only other option is to sit him for, maybe not this week, I don't know, but he could be on the IR. He has lingering injuries, God knows, but I don't know.
That brings a big problem, though. What happens if Jordan Love comes in
and
Aaron
does
Rodgers,
well.
Aaron, go take the rest of the year off, go play some golf. Like you tried. And what if he comes in and slightly lights it up? Slightly lights it up. Like just
Then great.
great. Then you're going into a tumultuous offseason. The whole
No, you're
offseason will be
not.
about trade, no trade. Do you trade Jordan Love now and get something for him? Do you trade out? Like it's gonna be insane. Insane. But it's
No,
over.
I think if anything, if Jordan Love comes in and does all right, they win a couple games, get good reps for him. But you know you're not fighting with your starting job with Aaron Rodgers. That's a given. So it's not a quarterback controversy ever if he's in the room. So I like that. I like that plan. But you have to be careful. You don't look like you're tanking and all that. But I think it's pretty obvious. Aaron's got that thumb injury. Put him on IR. And let's pack it in. I've had friends and family who were going to be going to some Packer games coming up, and they've like sold their tickets. They're like, I'm not going to watch this team. I don't support this team. It's horrible.
The Green Bay pack-it-ins. That's
hey,
the Green Bay pack-it-ins. Go Pack, go.
Oh my God. Okay, wait. Let's stay in the NFC with some teams here. Let's look at how about Atlanta Falcons. They're 4-5 to make the playoff. Plus 185 to miss it, minus 225. Now, keep in mind, they're still tied with Tampa Bay, but Tampa Bay holds the tiebreak. And I don't know, Atlanta's confusing because they're kind of like plucky, I think is a good word for them. They have a good rushing attack. I like some of their players, but they're inconsistent at quarterback with Mariota. Their defense isn't good. What do you think, Jerry? I'm going to say they miss it.
So yeah, I lean toward the miss. And I was looking at BetMGM. They have it at minus 225 to not make the playoffs. That's a little high. I don't know if I would be comfortable laying that. It's plus 185 for them to make it. So it's almost a stay away from a betting perspective, unless you really are willing to lay 225. It's a little heavy. But to me, yeah, they've been fun and definitely bet them the rest of the year in game. But yeah, I think they're just going to be a little short because we're all planning on the Bucks really just making their run now after what Brady did. So I think if you're gonna bet, I think you maybe throw a little on the yes, they'll make it, but that's just like a flyer because I think the minus 225 is a little heavy for the no. But I think it's a no.
Speaking of minus 225, that's Tampa Bay's odds to make the playoff, and to miss is plus 185. Like I mentioned earlier, they're also 4-5, tied with the Falcons. And as Tom Brady put it so eloquently, that was fucking awesome last week. That got me excited.
It was awesome. I'm still very worried. Like the drops, I've been complaining about the drops from weeks ago because I stupidly in the one last high stakes fantasy league I stayed in, which I swore I wasn't going to do, I have a Brady Evans connection, which has always worked well for me. And Evans even was dropping touchdown passes a few weeks ago. The Scotty Miller, like who's walking through that door? That's my big concern with Tampa. Mm-hmm. The defense, I think, will be fine. They can't really run the ball. You're really seeing what Antonio Brown and Gronk meant. Like who's walking through that door to fill this void? Because I think the Rams just flat out fell asleep on defense in that last drive, or they were just pissed that they shouldn't have been back on the field. I know Jalen Ramsey said, we shouldn't have even had to go back on the field, but I think you got to just ride Tampa now for the division, for the playoffs. I think they win the division, but it's not going to be fun.
No, I think they're asking too much of Tom at 45 years old. Like you mentioned, they have no run game, and there's too much expected of him, and he doesn't have the weapons to do it like he has. Okay, Giants 6-2, minus 250 to make the playoff, plus 200 to miss.
Yeah, for me, and my heart is at stake here, so I'm going to be very, very careful. I think from a betting perspective, the minus 250, I would not lay for them to make it because there still is some talent questions, especially at wide receiver. There's some injury problems now, as we saw with players getting hurt on vacation. Giants players need to stay off going on vacation because Avery McKinney broke his hand on an ATV or something. It does seem like Giants will get him back in a few weeks. So betting perspective, just for the value, I think the plus 200 for not making the playoffs is the best value, because that can actually happen. The Giants do have talent issues, but I do think they get it in. They get in the playoffs. It'd be hard for me to lay 250, but I think they're the 7th team that gets in.
I don't know, Jerry. I'm going to go against you. I'm kind of more supporting your team than you are right now. I think they make the playoffs. The minus 250 doesn't scare me. I know it's steep, but They've been a Cinderella story. They've been outperforming all expectations. I see no reason why it'll stop now. Their pass game has me a little concerned, but I like everything else I'm seeing.
Oh, and they just, right quick before we move, you see I'm nervous right now. We got the Lions on the schedule. We got the Texans on the schedule. So, like, just take
Those
care of your
two wins.
business.
Two wins.
I'm always scared of the Texans. You know me. I don't like.
Yeah.
I'm scared of them. I'm sorry. It's the scariest one-win team we've ever had in the NFL.
I mean, it's crazy. They're 6-2, and they've faced teams like Titans, Cowboys, Packers, Ravens. They've faced, I think, the meat of their schedule.
Yeah, I mean, they still got Philly twice. They got Dallas on Thanksgiving. This is going to be the first time, and we're hosting Thanksgiving this year as a family with like 40 of my wife's family coming over. So I'm gonna have to find, like, I'm gonna be watching on my phone. I don't even know how I'm gonna get this done. And there hasn't been a game on Thanksgiving that's actually mattered to me in I don't know how long. So and also it's my birthday the next day. It's like a good time.
Yeah.
But yeah, they still got Philly twice. They got the Cowboys. That's going to be the real hard part. But yeah, like beating the Texans, beating the Lions will go a long way for the Giants securing their playoff bid.
I also like how you said because you host, you can have the TV on whenever, wherever, whatever game you want. Yeah, so I know how it goes down in your house. Yeah, Rams to make it plus 200, to miss it minus 250. Rams are 3-5 after losing to TB12 last week. What do you think?
Look, there's still a lot of games left, but I think TB12 might have just put the finishing touches on that Rams team gracefully too, because that was one they needed. That was one they had. Their schedule doesn't get any easier. And also, again, I look at that team, like who's walking through that door? There's just too many holes. Without Cooper Kupp, this team is nowhere. Stafford's on the run for his life. The defense is always going to be good, but to me, it's a no, all the way home.
Sorry, I'm looking at real quick who they play this weekend. Arizona.
Yeah, no, there's some some wins coming for sure. But they got to go to New Orleans. That's not an easy one.
Then to Kansas City.
Yeah, that's why the schedule doesn't line up. I just
at Chargers, at Seahawks. They've got some toughies coming up.
It's tough for them. I don't think they get it. I think they miss out. And
yeah, I think they miss.
Might be listening to McVay call some games next year somewhere else.
Yeah, he looks a little over it. Don't you think?
You push. Look, they pushed all in for last year and this year, sort of. They got the Super Bowl, so you can't say, like, it's a success. They did what they needed to do. They got their Super Bowl. And again, look, there's a lot of games left. You can't ever count out a champ, but 3-5 with the way the Seahawks are looking and the way the moves that the Niners have made, it's going to be really, really tough. Okay,
San Francisco to make it minus 350. God, minus 350, really. To miss it, plus 275. They're 4-4. I think they make it. I mean, I still like Seattle to win the NFC West, but I think because the NFC is weaker, they should make it in. They're so well coached. They've got all these stars, added Christian McCaffrey. Jimmy G always gives you a chance.
Yeah, it's a make for me. The only thing that could stay, this is all, pending no or minimal injuries. That's always going to be the 49ers issue. If they're healthy or relatively healthy, I think you got to lay the 350. I think they're a shoo-in for the playoffs, and it's going to be a real fun shootout for that division. But it's all health for them. They're healthy. They're good.
Oh, look at this. Their next 5 weeks are at home. That's crazy. Their next
coming
5
off the
weeks.
bye, so they've literally will be home. Yep. They'll be home the whole holiday season. They get to spend in San Francisco.
Damn. Yeah, that's like a month and a half at home. That's pretty great. And then at Seattle, home against Washington. I just see wins here. I mean, I think they're in. I like it.
No, they're good. Stay healthy.
I like it. Okay, AFC, Baltimore Ravens are 6-3. What a great Monday Night Football victory over New Orleans. I think they win the AFC North. Their problem has been letting these big double-digit leads just slip away. We saw that versus Miami. We saw that versus Buffalo, Giants. And they got Roquan Smith. I think he's a great addition. One game, test sample here, but the defense looked great on Monday night versus New Orleans. And a weak spot on that Ravens team has been against good passing teams. So, they can pick them apart. They have the 5th worst pass defense. But when you look at the remaining schedule, they don't face any elite passers coming up. So I think they could even finish 6-2 or 5-3 or something like that. I think their schedule is really soft.
So as I mentioned in our open, Olivia, I started off this little exercise that we're doing here, looking at, and I started with the AFC. That's why the NFC, I've been given some quick, short answers. The AFC playoffs in general is going to be it was like a Russell Crowe in A Beautiful Mind, the way I was writing notes on my board, trying to figure out which 7 teams are going to make this playoff, right? So if you look at the divisions for now, if you want to even assume, and we'll ask, Ariel Helwani, who's a big Bills fan, are the Bills in after that loss? Let's just assume for a second that it was a momentary, just bad Josh Allen game. Hopefully the injury is not bad.
Mm-hmm.
If the Bills are in, the Chiefs, I think we could say are in with the division, right? The Titans, you look at that game defensively. I know they lost to the Chiefs, but I don't want to face the Titans. That division is absolutely terrible. Titans walk away. I personally, then you look, okay, so those 3, we have 4 teams left to make it. Now I'm going to throw teams at you as we do this exercise. You mentioned the Ravens.
Okay.
I'm with you. I think the Ravens are in. I look at their schedule: Panthers, Jaguars, Broncos, Steelers, Browns, Falcons, Steelers again, and then a last game matchup with the Bengals.
And can I interrupt you real
in.
quick? That Browns team is still without Deshaun Watson when they face him. Because remember I said they're bad pass defense. Deshaun Watson might come in and light some things up.
But either way, I just don't I don't see a way the Ravens don't get in as long as they stay healthy, right? Okay. So assume that those are the 4 division winners: Bills, Chiefs, Titans, Ravens. We have 3 spots left, and I'm going to name you 5 teams: Chargers, Dolphins, Bengals, Jets, Patriots. As it currently stands, it's the Dolphins and the Jets that are kind of holding on to 2 of those seeds. So we can go through it. I have all the schedules. This is insane because all these teams are going to play each other. 3 of them are in the AFC East.
I told you it's going to cannibalize. Like this is this is so crazy. With the Patriots, I mean, they're 5-4. From a betting perspective, to miss the playoff, -200. To make +165, I think they miss. I think the Jets, Bills, and Dolphins are all better. And I know it looks tighter in that division, just looking at records, but the fans booing Mac Jones, I think, says everything you need to know about where that offense is headed. I mean, it's ugly.
I do think it's a miss too. I'm very uncomfortable ever picking against Bill Belichick. We know this, but they're 5-4. Their schedule, obviously, now they're at home versus the Jets. Their next game, that's no longer a pushover. They go into Minnesota. Right. They still got the Bills twice. Then they got some, at Cardinals, at Raiders. That should be fine. They're home against the Bengals. That's a tough one. And then they play the Dolphins again. So I think they barely miss. I wouldn't be shocked if they get in, but I think it's a barely miss, although it terrifies me to go against Bill Belichick.
Okay, so are the Bengals one of your fringe teams?
So the Bengals were the tough decision because I really do enjoy that team. Their run last year was Seahawks-esque almost, let's say. They kind of came out of nowhere. They got it together at the right time. They are 5-4. They've had some misses in games that they should have won. Jamar Chase is out. That definitely hurt. Now they're still loaded offensively. I have them as a miss. Right now it's plus 120 to get in, and it's even money plus 100 really to get out. I have that as a miss. And here's why. Number one, they're already 0-3 in their division. 0-3 in the division already. They still got some games left, but that's a tough start. All right. The best they could do is 500 in division. Now they go at Pittsburgh, fine. At the Titans, that's a who knows. Chiefs.
That's hard.
Chiefs, Browns.
That's an L.
Browns, they win. At Tampa. At New England on Christmas Eve. That Christmas Eve game, we just spoke about the Patriots. In Foxborough, Bengals, Patriots on Christmas Eve. Massive playoff implications in that game. Massive. It could be decided in that game potentially. And then they finish up with they finish up Bills Ravens. It's a really tough schedule.
It is.
So I have them missing. I have it as a miss.
You have them missing. So then what about the Jets? Is that your last fringe team?
I mean, I think they're all fringe teams as of right now, only because it's like you said, they're all just gonna hurt. They're all just gonna hurt each other. Yeah, so I have the Jets, shockingly enough. I can't believe it.
In.
I have them in.
Woo!
Uh,
You had the
I
Giants out and the Jets making it.
well, I have the Giants in, but I just don't like the odds of I don't like
Yeah.
what you have
Yep.
to lay
Okay.
for them to be in. I think that's very, very expensive. I have the Jets in. They still got the Lions, they got the Jaguars, they got the Bears, which I know the Bears are playing better. There's some winnable games. They go into Buffalo still, and Buffalo owes them one. I have the Jets sneaking in. I do have the Dolphins sneaking in.
I like
Dolphins
that.
still got Texans. They have to go at Niners, at Chargers. The Packer game really is going to help the Dolphins out a lot because that was one of their tougher games left on the schedule, and I think that they win that one. And I have the Chargers getting in because also their schedule, they have Niners, Chiefs coming up. That's going to be rough. Then they go Cardinals, Raiders, Dolphins, Titans, Colts, Rams, Broncos. So I think there's a lot of wins. So I have those teams. I have the playoffs, the 3 wild card teams: Jets, Dolphins, Chargers.
I like the Chargers a lot. I like Justin Herbert a lot. He's so tough. He's playing through this fractured rib. It's crazy. Their defense is horrible. They have the 30th ranked defense. I don't know. When you look at what is such a tight division, tight conference, I don't know. And both are in second place of what was supposed to be the best division in football heading into this year. So I don't know. I like Chargers. I can see them making it. But God, we could sit here for hours, Jerry, dissecting the
No,
AFC.
and you know what ended up happening? It'll be like the 3 wild card teams will be like the Broncos, the Colts, and the Browns or the Bengals.
Colts,
So
Colts with Jeff Saturday are gonna make it.
Oh God, I love Jeff Saturday, but I think what was his quote? Like, I think if you asked Jeff Saturday on this news, as an analyst, he would be shocked.
Yep.
It's time to unleash.
All right, Olivia, listen, I've been giving a lot of thought. I didn't have like a clear-cut unleash this week, but then it just kind of hit me today. Maybe it's because we had my good buddy Max Greenfield on the show last week, who was laying out the beautiful case for Micah Parsons as like first half MVP. Tyreek Hill. Now, look, Tyreek Hill's not going to win NFL MVP. I get it. I do think it's time to re-examine the award as a whole and not just give it to a quarterback. Maybe have a separate award. I know we have Offensive Player of the Year that usually goes to a position player. Tyreek Hill is going to have 2,000 yards this year, barring any injuries. He may break the Cooper Kupp record from last year. We all heard when he left Mahomes, like, what is it going to mean he's going to play with Tua? Tua's been great this year. McDaniel, they've used him perfectly. Tyreek Hill is so open. He has to literally wait for the ball. He actually could have probably another 150 yards statistically this year if Tua was able just to lead him. Remember, he didn't have Tua for a few games. It's just remarkable what he does to an offense. I think he should receive at least one MVP vote. Just one as a sign of like, hey, we see you. We know you're not just like a weapon. You are a game changer. Of all the receivers I've watched in my watching experience as a fan, the 3 best receivers I've ever seen with my own eyes, I'm not going to say Jerry Rice because I saw him on the tail end of his career as I was a kid, but obviously Jerry Rice is the GOAT. Take that out of play for a second. It's Randy Moss, it's Calvin Johnson, and it's Tyreek Hill. Scariest receiver. I think he should get one MVP award as just a vote, as just a sign of like, we see you and what you have done this year, because it is incredible what he is doing for the Dolphins.
And what's really incredible is his back handspring after his touchdown. I mean, he should get a vote for that.
Yeah, and look, it's kind of nice because we thought, well, we'll see who's better, Mahomes or Hill, who's going to survive without the other. Guess what? They both are surviving and thriving. They're both amazing. Yep. The fact that they were on the same team is kind of insane, and I'm bummed that got broken up.
I know, but yeah, Mahomes is showing he didn't really need him. He's done well with these new receivers, which kind of leads me to my unleash because no, I'm not going to unleash on the Packers doing absolutely nothing at the trade deadline. I'm going to unleash on Tennessee Volunteer fans again. So not even a team, not a player. Again, I'm unleashing on fans because remember a couple weeks ago when I unleashed on their celebration and the victory over Alabama, they threw the goalpost in the river, etc. Well, now they just got whooped by my Georgia Bulldogs, and what they did before the game is horrible. That's right. These fans tried to take matters into their own hands. Someone got Georgia quarterback Stetson Bennett's phone number, Jerry. Like, this is where we're at. And they shared it across Vol Nation. So all night long, fans were ringing him up, right? Trying to wake him up and disturb his night of sleep before the game. So we saw after he scored the first touchdown, he did the call me hand signal to the crowd, and it was electric. People went crazy. I saw like the decibel ranking in Athens, Georgia at Sanford Stadium, like broke a new record. So in honor of an entrepreneurial spirit and in the new age of NIL deals for college athletes, Stetson has decided to make a profit off of this nonsense, and he's now selling t-shirts with the logo on it of him doing the call me sign. It's genius. It's so good. So my question, Jerry, doesn't everyone turn their phone on do not disturb at night? Like, is that the most weird thing about that whole story?
Yeah, I just turn my phone off in general. You know what I do love about doing the show with you, Olivia, especially on these segments, is your sort of threshold for fans. Like, you hold fans to a high standard, which I think is great. No, I think it's awesome.
Yeah.
You know, we saw with the World Series, you know, pizza places in Philly not wanting to feed the Astros. I think it's great.
Wow.
Look, 15 years ago, it was really bad when they would get like a house phone number. I think today it's a little ridiculous that they got his cell phone number. He's gonna have to, you know, send out a whole text of like new number, lock me in. He's gonna have to do that to all his friends. But capitalizing on the NIL part, I think is the rub here that I love.
Yeah, I love someone making $1 off of it. Pretty good. Okay, well, that's a good place to end. Like I said, we could talk forever about it, but let's switch gears because, Jerry, we've got a really, really good guest today. It's MMA expert and really just a big overall sports fan and personality to his millions of followers on Twitter and Instagram, Ariel Helwani. He's going to join us. I'm so excited. He's been with BetMGM about a year now, so he's in the family. And as the UFC returns to Madison Square Garden this weekend with UFC 28, that's a huge card. We'll talk to him all about it. He is the guy. I can't wait. You know, I've never met him in person. I've never talked to him in person, but you've done his podcast, yeah?
Yeah, I've been going on pods and talking with him for a lot of years now. He's fantastic. Just an all around fantastic sports fan. It's not just UFC with him. Although for me, we mentioned last week your like sports emergency contact list, right? Like anything in the UFC, I'm like waiting for him to update. He does great stuff on like Spotify Live during these events. Like he's a machine. And and a big Bills fan, so it'll be fun to talk to him.
I love it. Let's get to the interview. Okay, you do such a great job covering MMA. We'll get to all that, but what else are you following right now? Which teams or players are you a fan of? Because I know there's a Buffalo connection there.
Yes, there's a few connections there. Let me just say that I am first of all, huge fan of yours, Olivia and Jerry, of course. Jerry was on my show a long time ago. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah, we've been talking for a long time. We got some history, you and I.
All right. I just, you talk to a lot of people. I wasn't sure if I was just a blip on the radar.
Never.
Much love to you both. And if I'm being honest, I was kind of sitting back and wondering, when am I going to be invited to this great show? I mean, I'm part of the family. I haven't been invited, and I was sort of starting to feel like I was on the outside looking in of the cool kids club. So it feels good. My ego feels a lot better now that I'm here. Anyway, back to the question. I'm a massive Buffalo Bills fan, and I'm a massive New York Knicks fan. Obviously, the Bills are a lot closer than the Knicks right now. I was a huge Montreal Expos fan. Unfortunately, they are no longer with us. It's been 18 long years. I've sort of adopted the Blue Jays once I became a dad. I was like, all right, I can't be like this bitter, cynical fan. I need to have a team so that my kids aren't rooting for a team that no longer exists. That would be very strange and selfish of me. So those are my three main teams. And I don't know. I'm not sure when this is going to come out, but I am petrified right now because there's all these reports about Josh Allen's elbow. I asked my kids to say a prayer last night for his elbow. They said that was very weird. I said, just trust me on this one. He needs all the prayers. We'll donate our own elbow to him if we have to. So it's a bit of a tense time right now, but I'm still feeling good about our chances.
Well, if we assume that the Bills are locked in for the playoff and your prayers work on Josh Allen's elbow, if they had to play in the first round. Who do you want to face the least? I know Jets come to mind right away because they just stole a win
First
from
of all,
you, but
screw the damn
Miami.
Jets. Screw those
Okay.
stupid fans. All those people who texted me and DM'd me over the past few days. All of you, congratulations on your Super Bowl win in November. You're not going to be playing in January. You're a pathetic loser franchise with the ugliest jerseys in the league, and I hope you all lose the rest of your games. Screw all of you Jets fans, all right? I hate you guys. Oh, great job. You beat an injured Josh Allen. Way to go. We didn't have Jordan Poyer or Matt Milano either. All right, bravo. Anyway, I'm sorry to break the news. We're actually not going to play in the first round. We're going to get the bye. All right. So I know that was a trick question. We're getting the bye. We're going to be the number 1 seed, and it's all going to be good. I'm not nervous. I'm not nervous at all. It's all going to be good. Here's the thing, guys. Jerry, you know this as a Knicks fan. Like, I just want one. I just want to know what it feels like. That's it. I'm not going to be one of these greedy Yankee fans, these greedy Warrior fans. Oh, I want a dynasty. I just want to know what it feels like on that final day, that final game, to sit back and be like, holy crap, my team did it. That's all I want. And I've never experienced that in my life with any of my teams. Oh. And I don't know what that feels like. And as a dad now with 2 boys who are starting to get into it as well, I want to give that to them. And last year, I will never forget it. The second round game against the Chiefs, 13 seconds. Gabe Davis scores his 4th touchdown. My son Walter is sitting next to me. He's 8 years old, and I gave him a hug and I started crying and I said, "They are going to win. They are finally going to win." No. Because I thought we would host the Bengals in the AFC Championship, and then we would smoke the Rams or whomever it was in the Super Bowl. And I thought that was the closest that we have been in over 20 years. And then, of course, you all know what happened next. I just want one.
You know, it brings to mind too, because look, I'm a Knicks fan like you, so I know the exact feeling you're talking about. That's my whole life of basketball, and basketball is up there for me in sports. Obviously, I've had success with the Giants, but then also too, you know, you mentioned the Montreal Expos earlier, and like your fandom of that, like they were there. Remember that strike ended year? Like they even did the fake, like and they're supposed to be the Yankees too. It was like the Yankees Expos. They were on like this collision course, and it just never happened.
Do I remember it? August 12th, 1994 was the day the strike happened. Do I remember it? I freaking hold a vigil every single August 12th. It's a horrible thing. You know, there was this knock against the Expos that we didn't have fans. We did have fans. It was just that our stadium was in the middle of nowhere. It was built for the 1976 Summer Games. It wasn't a real baseball stadium. And as you may know, there's only like 2 nice months in the summertime in Montreal. No one wants to go in the middle of nowhere and sit in a domed stadium and watch baseball. They want to be downtown. They want to be having a good time. So that team was incredible in 1994. Yes, I know 95, the Mattingly season. Everyone thought he'd get his ring. It was going to be magical. And then, of course, the following year, we had to get rid of all our players. John Wetland, Marquise Grissom, Ken Hill, Jeff Facero, all these guys were gone. And then we were able to restock. And, you know, Pedro makes his run, and then we get Vladdy a couple of years later. And then we had another run. But then, of course, Major League Baseball screwed us. And, you know, Jeffrey Loria, New Yorker, buys the team. And then he tries to, you know, get the Marlins and that whole thing. So, yes, it's been a very tough. I would argue with anyone that I have had some of the worst luck of any sports fan out there. Between the Expos that don't exist, I will never see them win a championship. The Knicks have been, unfortunately, a bit of a laughingstock for the last 2 decades. And then the Bills, people forget the Bills were the last team to make the playoffs in the 21st century. It took them 17 years to make the playoffs in the 21st century. They were the last team. So, you know, Crimea River, Browns fans, Lions fans, all of you guys, it's been a rough go, okay? So I just want one.
Well,
we just had Andre Reed on the podcast. He was talking about all those years, and you've got to listen to that one because he gives a lot of credit to, see, Jerry, I knew I liked this guy. The loyal listener.
So before we...
But please continue. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Tell us what he said, because I need that. I need that positivity right now.
No, just about the build that Brandon Beane did and how exciting the future is. And I mean, nothing but good things for the future of the Bills. And I will be joining your prayers because the league is better with a healthy Josh Allen.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Olivia.
All right, before we get into like amazing UFC 281 stuff, I got 2 more things. One, because I love this game. I always think like, what championship would I trade for a Knicks championship? If they could win in 94, I would have easily probably traded like the Yankees 09 World Series. I don't really care about that one. So for you, you get one wish. The Bills could win the Super Bowl this year. The Knicks could win the championship this year. Or you go back to the little kid version of you and the Expos would have won the World Series in 1994. Which one of those 3 are you picking?
Oh, this is the worst question.
I love it. I love it.
It's truly, it's like it's pretty much the same as asking me which of my 3 kids do I like the most. That's
That's
pretty much
what
it.
I'm gonna ask next. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, I can't wait for that one. Hopefully they're not listening to this. Um, it's so tough because right now, I think you would agree, like the Knicks are pretty far,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And so right now, I feel like the closest for a very long time, because who knows when the Knicks are going to be able to turn this around. The closest I have been in quite some time are the Bills, right? And I feel this emotional attachment to those guys. Like I've never met Josh Allen, I've never talked to him, but I freaking would run through a wall for that guy. Like the way he handled that loss on Sunday, putting it all on his shoulders. Seems
Love
like such a
that.
great guy. Seem like you see him with kids. You see what he does for the community. I mean, I freaking love this man. I think I have as close to a crush on him as like socially acceptable. So I want to see him succeed. I want to see him win, and I want that for the city of Buffalo because let's be honest. New York has had some championships over the last 2 decades, and Buffalo doesn't have much. They have the Sabres, they have the Bills, and I got to actually go to my first ever Bills game just a month ago. I never been to a
Oh
home
my
game
gosh.
before. Yeah, and this was like it was like a spiritual experience. I've heard so much about it, but I went to Orchard Park. I saw what it meant. I was able to show my kids, my wife, what this means to these people because they laugh at me sometimes when I'm going crazy. I'm like, no, this is religion. This is like, it reminded me a lot of the Montreal Canadiens back home. This is religion. This stadium is their cathedral. And I think I got that point across. And so because I'm in the moment right now, I would say the Bills, but I would tell you this: in the '90s, my number one all time were the Knicks. Like they are the '90s Knicks are my favorite team of all time. Patrick Ewing is my favorite athlete of all time. I cried my eyes out in '94. I cried my eyes out with the finger roll in '95. I despise Michael Jordan with all my heart. I hate the Miami Heat with all my heart. I hate the India. I hate Reggie Miller. The sight of his face makes me sick to my stomach. I mean, in '94, when I was in the 6th grade, I wore a Ewing jersey and a Starks jersey every day, and I would rotate for the entire playoff run. It was Ewing Starks, Ewing Starks, Ewing Starks. In '99, I had the Spreewell jersey, and I wore that almost every day as well. I mean, I adored that team. It makes me very sad to see what has become of them. I'm hoping for good things. You know, they're doing pretty well. Nice win on Monday night. Jalen Brunson, great pickup. I kind of wish they did the Donovan Mitchell deal, but right now, in short, you agree? Thank you. It would be the Bills.
Well, that's a tough question.
Yeah,
Jerry asked tough
I
questions,
appreciate
and
that.
Ariel, you asked tough questions, and you're not scared to either, even of Dana White. I've seen that. Were you ever nervous asking an MMA fighter or anyone a question because of how they might respond?
Um, that is a good question. There have been a couple of times where it felt a little uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I never felt like someone was going to punch me or, do anything physical. But I would be lying if there were a couple of times. There's a famous one in 2011. There's a fighter named Nick Diaz, the older brother of Nathan Diaz. He's a very famous fighter. He wasn't really a fan of mine at the time. He sort of marches to the beat of his own drum. He's a different kind of cat, and he didn't want to do an interview with me before his fight against Paul Daly in San Diego, and it was a bit tense off camera. And then once we did the interview and he said yes, I asked him on camera, like, "Do you not like me, Nick?" And he's like, "Nah, I don't like your questions sometimes, and where I come from, people like you get slapped." And he like looked into the
Oh.
camera when he said that with a bit of a smile on his face, and he's from a rough part of town, Stockton, California. So in that moment, I was like, is he gonna slap me or what's gonna happen? But for the most part, I don't know how many MMA fighters you guys have met. Like these are sweethearts. They truly are salt
Yeah,
of the
we're
earth
teddy bears.
individuals. They're very, very kind, very thoughtful. They're not divas. They understand the power that they possess, and they don't go around just like punching people all the time. So it's been a couple of instances here or there, but for the most part, not really.
Yeah, they carry a great responsibility with the powers that they have. Similar to you, the night you mentioned the '90s Knicks. That's kind of was my life too. But you mentioned two Madison Square Garden, right? So I've been to I think 3 or 4 UFC events. I think I went to like one at Staples. I went to one at the Garden, one of the GSP ones. So I think obviously I'm always partial to Madison Square Garden because it's just where I'm from. But you have seen so many fights and covered so many as well. What in your mind is like, is there a top 3 arena? Because UFC is different, right? It's not just like a
hmm
basketball game. Like some people they don't love the setup as much as at MSG as they would somewhere else. So what arenas stick out to your mind for a great UFC event?
Oh man, that is a good question as well. I would say number one is the 3 Arena in Dublin. They are
Mm,
unbelievable. You're not too far away from them, Olivia. And
yeah.
that crowd, I mean, I saw Conor McGregor fight there back in 2014, and there were 10,000 people. It legit sounded like there were 100,000 people there.
Oh my
It
God.
was unbelievable, deafening, truly deafening. So I would say the 3 Arena is up there. Um, I don't want to be so partial to Europe, but man, the O2 in London is, I mean, the European fans are just different. Like there's a different kind of passion that they possess, and the way they back their own and the way they fight for their own and chant for their own. It's much like a European soccer game. So I would put the O2 up there. And if you want like a truly different kind of experience, the Saitama Super Arena in Saitama, Japan is so unique because they have hosted some of the biggest fights in MMA history, particularly the ones from an organization that is no longer around called Pride, which back in the day used to be the number one organization in MMA. And when when the fans go to those events, they don't treat it like us or even like the European fans where there's chanting, there's music, there's all this stuff. They treat it like we would treat going to the theater. They are so quiet during the fights and they do like little clapping things in appreciation.
Huh.
And then when the fights are over, then they'll like show true love. But you can truly hear a pin drop in there because it is just so quiet. The respect that they have for the gladiators, the warriors, it's just very different. So if you're looking for like the loud, boisterous crowd, O2 3 Arena in Dublin. But if you're looking for something that almost feels like a religious experience, I would suggest the Saitama Super Arena.
Oh, those are great answers. I bet that's kind of eerie, the quietness almost makes you
Oh
more
yeah,
nervous.
but it makes it feel like heightened, right? It makes it feel so
Sure.
much more important, and they just have a great, birthplace of martial arts, Asia, all that stuff. And there was a
Sure.
time where those events would be like the prime time. It's amazing. We don't have this in our country, but New Year's Eve was always the biggest night for fighting in Japan. And there was a period in the early 2000s where they would get, no joke, like 60, 70 million viewers on television for these fights. It was that big of a deal. It was bigger than, it was like akin to the Super Bowl here in America. And I never went to those particular ones because it was a little bit before my time, but I've been since. And it's just, unlike anything we have here in North America.
Well, MSG did not make your top 3 list, but it is a damn good venue too.
It
And
is.
Saturday night, it'll be rocking. The main event, Israel Adesanya, Alex Pereira. Who are you betting here? Adesanya's at -190, Pereira's +155.
Okay, so can I be honest with you guys?
Please.
Just us friends.
Yeah, no
M-
one's listening.
okay, thank you. MMA fighters, as tough and as great as they are incredibly sensitive. They are the most sensitive. And I learned early on when I would come on shows and my own show and make picks, they'd be like, "Oh yeah, f you. I'm not going to talk to you anymore because you picked against me." I was like, "Geez, I was just making it. It wasn't personal."
Wow.
So, for the sake of my career and
Yep.
my relationship with these guys, I have abstained from making picks because I don't want to fracture a relationship. You may say that I'm a wuss for doing that. I would just say I'm being business savvy, if you will.
Sure.
I will say this: the backstory is unbelievable in this fight. These two guys, in case you don't know, have fought twice before, but not in MMA. They have fought in kickboxing. Izzy Adesanya started off as a kickboxer. He's a pretty good kickboxer, but Pereira had an actually better kickboxing career than he did. And the last time they met, so the first time they met, Alex beat him via decision. It was a controversial decision. All right, all well and good. Then they meet for a second time in 2017, and Izzy actually was doing better than him. He was this close to finishing him in the second round, but then in the third round got brutally knocked out. Like knocked out bad, head hits the mat, like falls
Mm.
down. It was bad. Izzy hasn't fought in kickboxing since. He then transitioned over to MMA and he's had this legendary career. He's now the middleweight champion of the UFC. Alex stayed in kickboxing and actually became a 2 division champion. But then it became clear, like, yo, there's a money fight here between him and Izzy because Izzy is steamrolling through everyone. Let's try to make this fight happen. So he switched over to MMA a couple years ago and he's looked like a killer. His first fight back, he had a couple fights very early in his career, but his first fight after a long layoff, I legit thought he killed the guy. Like the guy was on the mat after he knocked him out for no joke, like 5-6 minutes, and it got uncomfortable. They're usually not on the mat for that long. He has a left hand that is like straight out of a cannon. And so he has been signed by the UFC. He looked good in his first few fights. And so they make this fight. And the thing is with Izzy, like people are intimidated by him. He's such a good striker. He's such a high level striker. There's that intimidation factor where a lot of these guys are actually losing the fight before the fight. Here you have Alex, who isn't intimidated by anything as he brings to the table. He beat him twice. He knocked him out. He's the only man to knock him out in MMA or kickboxing. And you could tell there's tension there, and you could tell there's a rivalry there. And I had Izzy on my show yesterday, and he admitted, because some fighters wouldn't say this, it is personal. He wants to right this wrong. He wants to, end this guy for his legacy so that people can't hang this over his head. So it's fascinating stuff. And to answer your question in a roundabout way, I do believe that Izzy should be the favorite. And just between us, I'll break my rule. I do think Izzy wins the fight. Don't tell Alex.
We won't tell anyone.
Yeah, no one's gonna hear this. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
I can't wait for it, because also too, I just think that, like you said, like these two styles, like, it's the kind of fight to me where you really just can't turn your eyes for 1 second. Not that you should ever turn your eyes in a fight, but there's some of those fights where, when it's on the ground, you can be like, all right, let me just grab a handful of pop. This one, I'm going to be watching the whole entire time, not missing a second of it. What are this is such a great card. Let's just talk about fights that you are most excited for. Obviously this one, the main event is going to be great, but there's a co-main event. So walk us through a little bit, just you sitting there, we were watching. What are you like, oh, this is the one? And maybe it's all of them. Who knows?
Well, the main event is fantastic, like I said, but honestly, I'm just as much looking forward to another fight on this card, and it involves Dustin Poirier and Michael Chandler. This is something else. I mean, there's so much MMA on these days. It's on every week, and there's a bit of, I think an oversaturation, if I'm being honest. This is the type of fight that gives me like chills. This is the type of fight that gives me goosebumps, that I get all sweaty in my palms for, because Dustin Poirier is an OG. He's a legend. He is a guy who has fought them all. He has beat a lot of them, including Conor McGregor twice as recently as 2021. And Michael Chandler is this guy who has been in MMA for a very long time. He was in Bellator, which was, the #2 organization in the United States. And then finally in 2020, he gets signed by the UFC, and he was like kind of viewed as the best guy to never fight in the UFC. He's a former wrestler from University of Missouri. He's jacked. He's freaking tough. He's a former champion in Bellator. But we all wanted to know, like, just how good is this guy, right? So he comes over to the UFC, and he has been outstanding. Now, he did win a couple and then lose a title shot, but he has been all action, and none of his fights have been boring. There seems to be this sort of tension between them, this sort of professional tension, if you will. They cross paths once at an event, and you could just tell, like, these are two alpha males who don't really like each other and would rather not be in the same space, but at some point they're probably going to have to get it on. And now they're getting it on. And the buildup has been great, and the rivalry has been great. The back and forth stuff has been great. So Poirier Chandler is fantastic. The co-main event, as you mentioned, involves Carla Esparza, who's the strawweight champion, going up against Zhang Weili, who's from China, who's unbelievable, who's a former champion who lost her belt and now is trying to get it back. She is jacked. She picked up Francis Ngannou, the heavyweight champion. She's 115 pounds, and she's picking up a 280-pound man like it's me picking up a banana. It's unbelievable. You got Meatball Molly on the card. You've got the return of Dominic Reyes. I mean, I could sit here, like I said, oversaturation, but when it comes to the big events, the UFC tends to deliver. And when they come to MSG in particular, because New York for so long didn't legalize MMA. It's only been since 2016. They usually bring the big dogs. They bring the big events, and this one is no different.
Okay, Meatball Molly McCann has got to be one of the better nicknames in sports. Tell our listeners how that nickname came to be. It's really good.
She used to work at a Subway, and when she was done working at the Subway, like I said, all humble beginnings, all down-to-earth people. Her training partner said that she smelled like, meatball sandwiches. And so
there are worse things to smell like.
Yeah, I guess. Although, like, you're rolling with someone on the ground, and you're like, oh, God, you smell like meatballs.
Oregano?
But she is so lovable. She is, that is true. She is she's from Liverpool. She is just a sort of working class type of fighter, someone that everyone loves and gets behind. And she has had a resurgence this year. She's had 2 fights in London where she won via spinning back elbow. And so putting her on this card with a ton of European fans expected to show up is a very smart move. She's very good friends with Paddy Pimblett, who everyone loves now. They're training partners. He's not on this card. He's fighting in December. But she's had a breakout year this year, so it's cool to see her on this card.
Yeah, this card's amazing, but I also, I did this whole bit last week of like my sports emergency contacts, like the people you call when some stuff happens. You would definitely be mine for UFC.
Why don't you call me ever then?
I would love to call you and ask you, or text you and ask you, and I'll ask you here on the show. Maybe I was just saving it for the show.
Okay.
What's the fight that you think should happen or will happen that we want to see that hasn't yet, or the rematch? Like, what do you want to see next?
There's a lot of them.
I know there's a lot. So like, but if you had the power to pick one, I'll frame it that way. Doesn't mean there's not 12.
Sure. I'll tell you the one that just popped into my mind first, because that's usually the most honest answer. It's the heavyweight debut of John Jones. John Jones is considered one of the greatest fighters of all time, if not the greatest of all time, and he has always fought at light heavyweight. He's the greatest light heavyweight champion of all time. He hasn't fought since February of 2020, and he has been teasing a move up to heavyweight for the last 2 or so years. And there's a guy named Francis Ngannou's out there whose contract is about to expire. But if he resigns with the UFC, as we all expect him to, as of next month when he's a free agent, John Jones versus Francis Ngannou would be incredible theater. John, the greatest light heavyweight champion, moving up to heavyweight to fight the current king of the heavyweights, who is the scariest man on the planet, who can knock you out with a pinky. I mean, this guy is like straight out of a comic book. I would love to see that happen. So a lot come to mind, but they've been sort of circling each other for a long time. To me, it would be a true travesty if we never see John fight at heavyweight, because he's been hinting and teasing this for so long. And who better than Francis Ngannou to welcome him? So that's the fight that I would make, and I would love to see happen come next year.
When you talk about any past or upcoming fight, I feel like the individual storylines so much dictate how we look forward to some of these or how we remember some of these. When you look at who could make a great movie or maybe a great book, or maybe it's already a book and should be a movie, who's a fighter that comes to mind?
Golly, I mean, again, it's a testament to their stories and their backgrounds. But again, I'll give you the first one that comes to mind. It's Francis Ngannou. Grew up in Cameroon with nothing. I mean, he has shown us pictures of his home, his childhood home. To say it's a hut would be nice. And
Wow.
this guy had to. He escaped Cameroon. He was on a boat for days on end with no food, no water, almost died multiple times, makes it to France, sleeping in a parking lot, in a garage, homeless, completely homeless, has nothing to his
Mm.
name, meets a guy who tells him that he's, a coach, wants to be a boxer, doesn't know how to start, doesn't know where to start, brings him to his gym. There's MMA at the gym, and the guy's like, forget this boxing stuff. You should do this MMA thing because you're such a beast. And this guy has nothing to his name, truly nothing. I mean, he's training and then he's going back to sleep in the parking garage. And now he's the heavyweight champion of the world. And
Mm.
so, that's one of a million. I mean, the
Sure.
easiest answer is Conor McGregor, who was, on welfare when he made his UFC debut. He didn't have anything to his name. He was, he was working to become a plumber before he started his MMA career. And now look at him, he is, you know, rich beyond his wildest
Mm.
dreams, and he's got all this money and all this stuff. So, um, that's what I love. I love the stories. At the end of the day, like the fights, like I said, there's so many and they all kind of blend together. But these characters, these stories. Israel's another guy. He grows up in Nigeria. His family moves to New Zealand. He's bullied as a kid. He's skinny. He's the only black kid in his school, and all of a sudden he, starts to fall in love with fighting, and he becomes one of the most feared strikers in the world. Like these stories of these people who had to overcome all these things and are now on top of the world. I mean, Izzy was telling me yesterday, the first time he fought Alex, he was staying in a $7 motel. That was his
Oh
fight
my
week
God.
hotel. He's now staying this week in some insane, look at his Instagram, like some insane mansion in New Jersey with an indoor pool, with a tennis court. Like it looks like something out of the X-Men. And, like he's paying for it. You know what I mean? So like things
Yep.
like that are incredibly inspiring. And it's why I love these guys so much, because they truly had to scratch, claw, and bet on themselves, right? It's not a team
Hmm.
sport. You don't rely on others. You don't need others. And there's no knock on those guys, but it's like, man, this can go, you could get knocked out, it can all end, or you can continue to climb and build and bet on yourself and pray. And here they are headlining MSG. A kid from Nigeria who moved to New Zealand is now headlining MSG. Like this is insanity.
So look, since we're talking about like what would make a good movie and good storylines, because I agree with you. I think it's countless stories to tell, and sports movies are like a funny thing. For me, they like stick out. There's some that are really good, and then when sports movies go wrong, they could be really bad, especially
Hmm.
the physical acts of sport. I
Oh
came
yeah.
close. I almost had the chance to play a fighter. I was deep into looking into the Arturo Gatti story. I had some of the rights, and I started to train. I was training that wild card and really feeling the pressure of, when you're around real fighters and you are maybe going to play a fighter, like, it's honestly, give me any other sport because those fighters are looking at you like, "You're not a fighter." So I guess now sticking with sports movies and fighting movies, for instance, I don't know if you're a big movie guy or not. Are there fight movies that stand out? Like if you could say like who kind of did it right, or who's your favorite on-screen fighter? Obviously like Rocky's the easy one, for example.
Yeah.
But if you look at Warrior, I think like Tom Hardy in Warrior was dope.
Yep.
Like I bought him as a fighter completely. Do you get to watch many? And is there any that stuck with you? Maybe because we'll start making movies now, Ariel.
Well, I would love that. And by the way, can we start with the Gotti one? Gotti was my favorite boxer of all time.
Same.
From Montreal.
Same.
So what happened? What happened?
What happened was it was taking a long time to get some of the deal done, and he has a great manager, Pat Lynch, who was like his brother, and he really wanted to see the story done. He shared like all their stories with me, and I was training, and it took long, and then I had a scheduling thing, and you look back, it's like 4 years gone by. I was 29, 30 years old when we started, got down to 145. I'm now 34. I'm like 160. I'm a little older, a little slower. I got gray, because we wanted to really take him from, his journey from Montreal. And then he became like this Jersey guy, even though he had the weirdest accent of all time. It was Montreal. It was like Italian. It was Jersey. So I just got old at the end of the day. I kind of aged out of it. And it's unfortunate because I saw Mickey Ward a few weeks ago. And I talked to him about it, and he's like, yeah, that's like the thing that's missing from The Fighter, the movie The Fighter, was like Arturo's side of that.
Yeah. That was a great movie as well. By the way, I don't think you're that old. I would love to see it happen. I would love to see him immortalized like that. He deserves it. What happened to him was obviously heartbreaking. I see his son sometimes on social media. Have you seen him?
I have,
this little
yeah.
kid? Oh my gosh. Crazy. Absolutely crazy to see how much he resembles him.
Yeah.
But to answer the question, Tom Hardy was going to be my answer. There haven't been a lot of great MMA movies.
I know.
Here Comes the Boom was fun with Kevin James.
Yeah.
That was actually kind of fun. I mean, obviously not the same. I don't know if you guys saw Here Comes the Boom, but it was a good time. MMA
You've
hasn't
used boxing.
been done great.
You've used boxing too.
Yeah. So look, I know it's probably an easy one. I do think Michael B. Jordan does a great job with the Creed movies.
Mhm.
Those are tremendous. I think Wahlberg did a great job. Ali was okay. I've seen most of them. Will Smith, Ali. I'm still waiting
You
for
guys are forgetting like the Oscar winner,
Wait, Rocky?
$1 Million Baby.
Oh yeah, that was tremendous. That was tremendous. Yes, that's my bad. I will say I'm waiting for the Jamie Foxx Tyson movie.
Me too.
I always see that clip of him talk. You never see that clip of him talking about the opening scene. I'm like, man, he sounds like him. And where's that movie? I don't know. They did the Hulu movie about him, which I guess Tyson wasn't happy with.
Yeah, I don't know where the Jamie Foxx one is. And I continue to be Marvel. And another one who's part of the BetMGM family, Jamie Foxx. Shout outs.
That's why I said it.
I continue to marvel at to me is the most talented person on the face of the earth. Even when he's like doing like a Trump impersonation on Instagram, like it's like, oh my God, he's got it. So if anyone, and we've seen a lot of Mike Tyson stuff before, right? But if anyone could maybe put a new light on it and actually make us buy it, I think it's Jamie Foxx. I'm waiting for that one too. But you sparked another idea. Maybe we get Arturo's son in a few years to play his dad.
Yo.
You just sparked it. You might have just become a producer
Right now?
with me.
Right now? Did I just spark it right now?
You just sparked that idea in my head. Why not just wait it out until he, is ready?
I like it.
You just like, I mean, who knows? That might be too painful. I don't know if he would view that as a painful thing because I'm sure there's a lot of, pain with that. He lost his dad, but, I wonder if he would be interested.
Isn't that what they did with Gandolfini?
Yes, his Gandolfini's son Michael, who I've gotten to know a little bit, played young Tony Soprano in the Sopranos movie. So maybe you might have just opened the doors again.
I just want to like a special shout out in the credits. That's all.
Special
I don't need
thanks.
a lot.
Special thanks.
Yeah, just like something at the end. Special thank you to Ariel Helwani for making this all happen.
Well,
would be nice.
Bigger thanks. Thank you for coming on here and talking some MMA and some Buffalo Bill. I think everyone knows obviously how big of an MMA guy you are. I love listening to you even on Simmons talk about the Bills. It's amazing.
Oh, thanks,
so,
man. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank
just
you for
one.
coming
I just
on.
want one. Can I just have one? Can I just be happy once in February? That's all I want is
it's so
one.
sad. It's so sad to hear you say it like that. Good luck.
Thank you so much, guys. You guys are doing a great job. I'm so happy that we finally kind of broke the ice here. I was feeling some sort of way about it, as I mentioned. I need to get into it again. So thank you for having me. Continued success, and really appreciate you guys inviting me. And I hope we could do it again soon. Maybe when the Bills win the Super Bowl, we can have a big party.
I will definitely be there. And if I come to 281, I'm gonna reach out. If I come to 281.
Perfect. Thanks, guys.
Take care.
Thank you. Well, I'm up to season 4, episode 10. I made some good progress this week. It was rainy in London, Jerry. I got a lot of entourage in. So just as shook as I was with the Lisa Rinna episode a while back, I was so excited about that one and laughed my ass off. I was laughing my ass off in this furry episode. I put it on my Instagram story. I tagged you, and I had so many people say, I love that episode. Oh my God, I'm dying. Like, everyone knows that episode who has watched the show. Now, for those who don't know, according to the internet, a furry is someone interested in anthropomorphic animals. This can be sexual or not sexual. And yes, I did look this up. So it's really just folks who are into animals talking and stuff, but Entourage fans know that that's not what this episode's about. So tell me, when you first read the script for this episode, what did you think?
I remember exactly what I thought. I thought many times reading the scripts. Are you kidding me? Like, I read it and I would say, are you like, what are we doing here, guys? And I think, like, at first we referenced like a furry, and then it was like a plushie, which was like another name used for
Oh
it.
God.
And I'm like, God, well, look, let's go to the table reading, and maybe they'll rethink this once they hear it out loud. And of course, the person who always makes this stuff work is Kevin Dillon, who plays
Yep.
Johnny Drama. He takes all these storylines that are kind of just sort of unbelievable, and he just grounds them in a way and makes it hilarious. And yeah, so I think the picture that I put up on Instagram and Twitter every year that gets the most traffic of all time is on Easter Sunday. I always put up a picture of me in the pink bunny suit, and I wish everyone a happy Easter. I do every year for like 5 years running. And it always gets hundreds of thousands of likes and retweets and reposts and comments. It is some of people's favorite episodes. And
Yeah.
that was another one. And it's just kind of the common habit. The ones I'm always like, God, what are we doing? Who's going to
Yeah.
watch this? People's favorite episodes, which adds to the rhyme and reason. Like, you just don't know. You don't know what's going to capture people's attention and their interest. But yes, a lot of people have that in their top 3, like, most funniest Entourage episodes of all time.
I was so hooked because you go on Craigslist, I believe. Wasn't it Craigslist?
Yeah, back then I
Yeah.
learned how to look up what Craigslist was. I was like, wait, what is this Craigslist? This is a real thing? What is this?
Oh, I love anything like that dates the show. There's so much
There's a
there,
lot.
but it's great. And because it's so of the time. Like, and I wish I had watched this in real time, because I bet it would have just, I mean, I know from people saying it was the culture, kind of like you talked about sneaker culture. Like, that was like a new thing in this episode.
Yeah,
there's just a lot.
Like, in the furry stuff at the time, like, a lot of people didn't even know that was a thing.
No.
And Entourage has done that a lot. Things that people didn't know were a thing, and we do an episode, and then they go do some research, like, oh, wow, there's a whole community of these people who this is how they roll, Yeah, and another one, another one on the list of tough ones to watch with the grandma. Tough one to watch. Yeah, it's a tough one. I was like, Mom, Grandma, you guys could skip this week's episode if you want. And they're like, no, we're not skipping anything. Great.
Now, any episode that you do something like, it's really just anything sexual. I'm like, they probably don't care about you like cussing or smoking weed or anything like that.
No.
I'm like, anyone that's just sexual, I'm like, oh, his grandma had to watch that.
Yeah. No, my grandmother likes the cursing. She was into that. Like, it didn't bother her at all. But I'm just like, God. And they were good sports. They never made me feel weird about it. But I always just felt weird.
Okay, something else I'd ask you about season 4 is you had a couple scenes with Gary Busey. What was that like?
The Busey. Listen, we go back to like season 1 with him.
Right.
I remember the first time we worked with him, he was kind of making the script his own, changing his words, and he's playing himself so fine.
Yeah.
And then I think Doug Allen or someone tried to give him a note, and he said, no one could write Gary Busey like Gary Busey, and basically like kicked off the producers. And it was always a little scary with Gary, because he was very, you just didn't know where he was going to go.
He's intense.
The script kind of goes out the window, and you just don't. One moment in season 1, we're doing a scene on the beach. He said, you ever play the game Tickle Pee? And I'm like, what is Tickle Pee? So that's where I hold you down. I tickle you till you pee your pants. I'm like, Gary, I'm a grown man. Don't touch me. And he's like chasing me on the beach, trying to tickle me. No, yeah, but he was kind of like the mascot in a way. Like, it was some Yeah, I didn't love those days with the Busey.
Oh my God. Well, it did well on camera. I'm telling you,
Yeah.
it's gold. And he's such a random recurring guest.
Yeah, it's again that the entourage world, which once you become a fan of the show, like you buy in and like, yeah, there's some of people's favorite cameos. Where's all the
Yeah.
Gary Busey? We were all afraid of him on the show, and I think in real life a little bit.
Okay, and then one more person who's been in episode 4 a lot I've got to ask about, or sorry, season 4, is Anna Faris. What was
Yes.
she like?
She was amazing. It was a great storyline. I wish that storyline kind of lasted even longer.
Yeah.
And also another good storyline of just like putting a movie together and getting an
Hmm.
actor who is interested and what they mean to like the budget and getting everyone excited and stuff like that. I thought it was pretty cool, like the inside look of how putting together a movie works. And she's just so quick. What I mean by that is just, whatever you throw at her, she doesn't even need a second to like process it. Like whatever notes or direction or line changes, she's like, got it, good, let's go. Like she was just
Hmm.
in the few moments I got to work with her, she's super quick and hilarious. It makes your job
So
easy.
hilarious.
You just gotta stand there and just say your lines correctly. She makes your job really easy.
Oh, I love it. I'm loving season 4.
The Lions Lock.
All right, it's time for one of my favorite parts of the show. Although we always talk about betting here, we're going to talk some Week 10 wagering with BetMGM analyst Peter Andrew. He's our odds-on favorite. Peter, listen, buddy. Now we're not gonna talk about last week all that much. I'm just gonna say one thing. Maybe you should already start planning, renewing your vows with your lovely wife, because when you came out of the wedding, you were hot. You had all that wedding juice on you, I think it's starting to wear off. You maybe should consider renewing your vows after a tough week last week.
Yeah, call me
Wedding
Frank Reich
juice.
because I'm on the hot seat here.
You were on the hot seat. Jeff Saturday's looking at your job. But look, you didn't miss by much. We loved your parlay. Damian Pierce, you had for an anytime TD. He got down to the one. He was right there. Everything else hit as planned. Tried to sort of talk you off the Eagles minus 13.5, but it was all right there. A few different swings, and you easily hit that parlay.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, between that with the one game parlay just missing, the Bills let me down big time on the teaser. Everything else fell into plan. I mean, what I say, Titans plus 19, plus that under in the Vikings game. Sure things. And then, of course, the late touchdown by the Bears had Dolphins minus 5 and let me down. So close only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades, I guess.
So before we get into your picks real quick, can we almost expect, we watched the Bills, a lot of people got lost on teasers and stuff like that. Could we almost expect a heavy underdog money line winner every week? Because it's feeling like it's starting to become every week.
Yeah, from a book point of view, we're having a great season so far, and it's a lot to do with that. It's that one big result each week that's really, really carrying us. Bills was the great example this week, and we've seen a couple of them throughout the first, 7-8 weeks of the year. So really interesting.
So a really fascinating tweet by one of my favorite follows, John Ewing, that I shared actually with a lot of people. BetMGM has seen sharp action on the Jets, Bears, and Seahawks in Week 9. The Rams are one of our biggest liabilities, putting the sportsbook in the rare position of needing Tom Brady to win. I just thought that was incredible because I imagine as a sportsbook, you're constantly always rooting against Tom Brady, and they actually needed Brady to win, and he did. That's awesome.
So John didn't talk about it too much, but same thing with Aaron Rodgers. Like, how many years have we been talking about needing Aaron Rodgers to lose the game? And then this year is just wildly different. So we're in a new era now. It's, I think a couple of these older quarterbacks are
kind of sad.
Finally on the downfall. It's really sad.
Yeah.
Especially because you look at, Olivia, you know this, the Packers are obviously a little bit more expected because the team lost quite a bit, especially with Devontae, but the Bucs are still on paper, a decent team. So for them to be in this position, it's kind of crazy.
Oh, man. Okay, let's look ahead to this weekend. First of all, you have a 2-unit, 1-game parlay. Walk us through this one. Is this for Thursday night?
It's for Thursday night. Not the best game in the world, but we got Falcons at the Panthers, the worst division in football. Yeah. So, listen, the Panthers looked bad last week. PJ Walker, 3 of 9 or 3 of 10 for 9 yards in the first half. And I think as of right now, he might be starting on Thursday because all the props are leading towards that. If that's the case, I like the Falcons big here. So with that said, I've took nothing that is Carolina focused because we just don't know what's going to happen. I think they even activated Sam Darnold back, so there's a chance he's playing in the next couple weeks.
They're all three available.
That's how you know things are not good in Carolina right now.
No.
Cordero Patterson over 34.5 rushing yards. He's back and healthy. 34.5 is one of the lower props that we offered in terms of his yardage. I think it's a safe assumption, especially if he goes back to some sort of form like he was last year. I think we're in good shape there. Mariota only over 125 passing yards. So this isn't 225. This isn't 275. This is just do the bare minimum. Get me back in the green. Get me out of the red. Get over 125 yards. I changed the line to an alt line of Falcons minus 6.5. Again, with what we said about Carolina just not being a good team. Instead of the 2.5, I pushed it up to 6.5. So get plus money there. And then the last thing is something I haven't done this year yet, but I really like this, especially in soccer. It's a halftime, full-time bet. So a specific team to lead at the end of the half and obviously at the end of the game. So I like Falcons to be leading at the half and then obviously win the game outright. So added all four of those, 2 units, so $20 at plus 450 to win 110, including that stake. So right then and there, that hits. Seems pretty manageable. That puts you in the green, and then we focus on the rest of the bets for the weekend.
Yeah, you got to imagine the Falcons are going to want to get this one, and I'm sure the Panthers too. They might as well just roll out maybe PJ for the first quarter, Baker for the second, Darnold for the third, and whoever's playing better, you could play the fourth. It's almost like preseason rules, I think, at this point, because they're like in assessment territory at this point. Like, what do we have? God, that's a good. You know what? I like the lead at half and at end of game, and you would think too with the Falcons' weapons like Mariota. I mean, 125 is like 2 screens to Patterson and like a Kyle Pitts seam route and it should be done.
Atlanta. It's in Atlanta, yeah.
It's in Carolina.
It's in Carolina.
Oh,
but I don't know how much of an impact that has
the
on
raucous
that,
fan base.
Right, you know they were having issues with the fan base, I think, but we talked about that, I think, back in like the week 1 and the preseason. So, all right, we're with you there. Do you have another teaser for us this week? Because you know I love the teasers.
I do have a teaser here. So 3-teamer again, moving everything 6 points again. So we mentioned Frank Reich in the Colts. Jeff Saturday being head coach right now makes absolutely no sense to me. I think that's a very weird game for them this week. Especially since Jeff Saturday, I think one of the last things he said over media is how bad the Raiders are. And guess who they're playing this week? The Las Vegas Raiders. So Raiders just to win. So it's minus 0.5. So all they need to do is win. That covers the spread. So I've teased that down from that 6.5. I will be in San Francisco repping my Niners this weekend. Home against the Chargers. I've teased that down to 7. 7 seems like a weird line there, given the Chargers are obviously a solid team. So Niners down to -1. Love the Niners at home. I think they've figured out, obviously, how to be using McCaffrey here. And having the week off, the bye week to get healthy, I think is super important for them. And then last one is just keep on rolling with the Eagles. I've listened to Jerry here a little bit. The 13.5 of last week, I've learned my lesson. So the 11 this week against the Commanders at home at Lincoln, teased that down to -5. Again, Eagles, best team in football right now. I don't think anybody can argue that one. Eagles 8-0. So plus 160 right there. So you're getting really good value just teasing those points down. 50, so 5 units to win 130. Again, I think this is I say this every week, but I feel like this is a good one right here. We're playing to a lot of strengths. And I think the Raiders one is just the interesting one. They've looked awful, but so have the Colts. And Jonathan Taylor is clearly not right, not healthy. I think he's played in maybe 3 games this year. So I think you have an auto fade with the Colts.
So we're looking for your big bounce back here. You have, I think, 3 units left. So I'm very curious to see where you go here. Yeah.
So Vikings, Bills, probably one of the games of the week, if not the game of the week. But you have Josh Allen with potentially a UCL injury. You saw at the end of the Jets game, he just did not look right. Somehow was still flinging the ball 70 yards. But clearly that arm's bothering him. I think he's due to have MRI today or tomorrow. So I've faded them right now. So Vikings plus 6.5. Vikings are obviously a really good team. They're a top 5 team in the league anyway. I think 6.5 seemed like a lot of points there. So with the injury, I think Vikings with a good on the road victory last week. I think they're riding into this week pretty strong. And everybody saw the video of the plane with Kirk Cousins with all the jewelry on. I mean, they're
the chemistry is
right
high with those Vikings. I like to look for chemistry at this point in the year. They are all the games that the Vikings typically lost. They could have easily been 6-1, 7-1 last year. All the games and the injuries and the weird, like they blew a 17-point lead to the Lions and lost. Like they're just not doing that this year. They're closing the door. It's still getting a little weird, some with them. You can never quite count any team out, as we even saw last week. But the Vikings at this point, I like what you're doing, because if Allen is not right, that's a +6.5. It's a big number to cover with a quarterback that might only be at 50-60%,
Yep.
So
yeah, and I think back to the Vikings, they've done this without a lot of production from Justin Jefferson from a touchdown point of view. I think there was a point he might not have a touchdown since week 1. He's obviously getting his yards and getting his catches, but when he gets hot, a good team turns great. So it's gonna be really interesting to see second half of the year.
Yeah, and you can't underestimate the Hawkinson trade. I thought that's when we look back on this year, if the Vikings really do make a deep run, that trade might have been the sneaky little interdivision move, which we never really see, that puts them over. He had 9 targets for 9 catches, like instant impact. And it's just an upgrade at the position. I loved Irv Smith, but it's just an upgrade at the position. So,
Totally.
All right, Pete, the big bounce back for you, buddy. I feel good about it though. Well, Peter, I'm going to make one tiny suggestion too. Right before the games kick off this weekend, maybe just have a look at the wedding photo album, or maybe watch the video. Just get some of those feels back. I'm telling you, because I want to make sure that you have that wedding swag coming in. But Peter, thank you as always. You're gonna make up for last week right here. It's a big bounce back for the kid.
I might bring the photo, the wedding book, to Levi Stadium. So just good vibes with all my buddies. So we'll see if that makes sense.
So weird at halftime. What's Pete doing? Pete, you want a beer? No, I'm really into this wedding album right now.
Got the Bible and the wedding album. Just which one do I go to? No one will know.
All while wearing a McCaffrey jersey. Thanks a lot. Enjoy San Fran. Enjoy the game.
Yeah, maybe see you this week.
For sure.
Okay, another week in the books. That was a lot of fun. Remember to tweet me or Jerry if you cashed in on Jets over 5.5 total wins, because I want to know who you are. You are a special bettor. But make sure, everyone, you subscribe to the BetMGM Unleashed podcast YouTube page. Yep, you can watch all of these interviews so you can see our beautiful faces. That'll be a lot of fun. And the full Max Greenfield interview, that was just last week. That's a lot of fun too. Kevin Garnett, Andre Reed, Jay Glazer. We've had some great guests, and guess what? They're still coming. So be sure to join us next week. We got soccer legend Tim Howard stopping by to talk all things World Cup. Woohoo! That'll be fun. Good stuff. See you then.